welcome to New Hope this morning. We're so thankful that you chose to spend your Sunday morning with us. Again, whether you're here in the room with us or online, we're so thankful that you're here to worship our amazing God. So a couple of things that we wanted to share with you, things that are happening or things that you need to know about. In the seat backs in front of you, there are prayer and connect cards. So the double-sided card, if you have a prayer request, we're happy to receive those. Those go through a lot of different iterations throughout the week so that we get as much prayer time into those requests as possible, and we are humbled when you ask us to be able to pray for things for you and on your behalf. We have an amazing prayer team that pray over those cards. And again, if you need something, please put that on there. You can turn it in the offering boxes, which are at each one of the doors as you exit, or at the Welcome Center. If you're new to us today, we welcome you especially, and we want to get a chance to know you better as well. So please fill out the information as much or as little on that Connect card as you're willing to share with us. And you can, again, drop those in the offering boxes if you'd rather not connect necessarily to someone today, or please feel free to just stop at the Welcome Center and give us a chance to get to know you better. Couple family news items, things that are happening. Again, it's summer, so what sounds better than a baseball game? So summer church New Hope night at the Red Sox game is going to be on July the 19th. You can sign up for that and get your tickets. There's an arrangement. We'll all be sitting in the area together. So if you sign up, get your tickets, and you pick those up at the ballpark. That is on, again, the 19th at 7:05. So July 19th, 7:05. You signed up either online or through the Church Center app. If you have questions about that, again, we can help you with that out of the Welcome Center. And then the next big summer event on the heels of that Red Sox game is Vacation Bible School. So we're very excited. Preparations underway for that. We would encourage you to sign up your kids, your family, your friends, kids from your neighborhood. It is an amazing week. Starts on the 22nd and goes through end of day on Thursday. And that there's also an opportunity to volunteer. We just went through Impact Roanoke Week, and many of you participated in some of that VBS prep work. And so we wanted to remind you that there's an awesome opportunity to be here to serve our littles that week. It's an amazing week. If you've not been involved in it, it's a huge transformation that takes place in the building. And I saw somebody online this morning had shared that it was like the Super Bowl for their kids. And so it is an amazingly fun week. And so, and as we always say, many hands make light at work. So if you can have an opportunity to volunteer that week, sign up, and our kids ministry team will plug you in some place that will make you feel extremely used and blessed to be able to be here that week. That's all I've got for you this morning, but again, it's amazing to see you all, and we're going to go ahead and transition to the next installment in the series of the Book of Daniel.
Looking around at the world, it's easy to feel defeated or in despair. We aren't the first people to feel this way. Centuries ago, God's people were taken into exile under hostile rulers. Yet God equipped them not only to survive, but to thrive. Through the Book of Daniel, God invites us to do the same, shining like stars in the midst of the darkness.
What does it mean to be in exile? Exile, it's often defined as a place where we are not at home. We have lost the place where we belong. And as we think about living in exile today, you and I, we often don't feel like we're in exile because we were born here, right? Or we do live here. We haven't lost our sense of home. But I think most of us would agree that if you would survey the last 20 years or the last 50 years, the place that we live, even if it's the same address, is very different than the place it used to be. The world around us has changed drastically, and in that way, many of us feel like we are in exile. And for those of us who identify as Christians, we say, I am a follower of Jesus. We spiritually then have entered into what we call the kingdom of God. And as we live for God in the context of the world, in the world but not of the world, what we find is that we are in exile. And we experience this reality that we've lost our place, our land, our sense of home and belonging. There's a great song about exile that came out recently. And I don't mean the one with Taylor Swift and Bon Iver and, it's a great breakup song, I guess. But the one that I'm referring to is the one that came out by David Crowder, songwriter, worship leader. In this song from this album, here's how he describes it. Stranger in a strange land, wandering like a nomad. Nothing round here feels like home. Thirsty in a desert, wondering if I'll never, ever get back to where I belong. So we have this ache, right? We have this sense that things are not as they are supposed to be. And we long for them to be made whole, to be made right. Once again, we long to be home. In our series, Exiles in Babylon, we're looking at really four main characters, Daniel and three of his friends, and we're learning from them how they lived in their exile, in an effort to learn how we might live in our exile. And as we think about these characters, in particular in Daniel chapter 3 today, we're going to look at the three friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or as I like to call them, Rack, Shack, and Benny. All right, now, that's a VeggieTales reference. If you don't know it, it's a great little cartoon for the kids from back in the day. It's a 90s thing, I think. And Rack, Shack, and Benny are experiencing the very same thing that Daniel has experienced. They're the people of God. They were born and raised in the promised land. They worshiped God, and then the judgment of God fell on their land and on their leaders and on them because of the sin of the nation. And they were led into exile, into Babylon, to a new land where they're learning a new language. They're given new names. There's new culture and customs. There's new food. Everything is different. They are no longer at home. And as we think about this, they still believed in and they wanted to follow God in the context of this foreign place. But the question is, what does it mean to live as God's people in a land that is far from God? How can we follow God in the midst of exile? And here's what Daniel has taught us so far. So if you're a guest with us, welcome. We're glad you're here. We're going to catch up to speed. For those of us that have been here, we're going to review. Maybe you missed a week, you'll catch right up. Daniel chapter 1, we learned that it's important in the midst of exile to be different. We have to just recognize that we will be different in exile. This isn't our land. This isn't our home. This isn't our custom and cultures. And so we're going to stand out. We're going to look a little bit different than the world around us. And in chapter 1, Daniel had resolve in verse 8. That was the word. He resolved not to defile himself. And God honored his worship and his faithfulness in that moment. In chapter 2, we saw that we need to be available to being used by God in the midst of a pagan land. Pagan meaning simply far from God, right? I'm not being derogatory or trying to be offensive. But in the midst of a land that worships other gods, we have to be available to the one true God who is willing and ready to use us to make a difference in the world around us. Daniel, he was willing to use his gifts that God had given him to speak to the king, to interpret his dream. And man, we dove deep last week in chapter 2, and we learned how important it is to be available to be used by God. Today in chapter 3, what we're going to learn from Daniel's three friends is that we absolutely have to be courageous, because there is a time will come where we will face opposition, and that's the moment when we have to decide, will we stand up for what we believe, or will we bow down like the rest of culture? And in the face of opposition, in the face of danger, in the face of pain, we have to be willing to be courageous. Courageous is being brave. It's not having no fear, but it's willing to follow through in the midst of the fear that we have. It's doing the hard right on purpose, regardless of the consequences on the other side. When I think about this, a modern expression that comes to mind for me is a young man named Desmond Doss. You may recognize his name. If not, you may recognize his story from the movie Hacksaw Ridge in 2016. Desmond was born in Lynchburg, Virginia, just down the road, in 1919. And Desmond grew up to know and follow God. He happened to be a Seventh-day Adventist. And his religious convictions were that he was a pacifist. He didn't feel like he was able to take up a weapon in war because he did not want to murder someone else. Now, I know that's not how all Christians read the text. So that's how he read and interpreted the text. And so for him, his conviction was, I want to serve my country in World War II. I'm willing to enlist and to wear the uniform, but I am unwilling to take up a rifle. Well, people thought he was crazy. He's like, you're going to go into war without a weapon? What kind of idiot are you? I mean, they ridiculed him, his fellow soldiers, his commanding officers. He's even court-martialed at one point for disobeying because he wouldn't take up arms and practice at the range. And time again, he stays true to his beliefs and ends up being allowed to go in and serve with the others as a medic. Now, as a medic on the field, his primary job was to help the wounded. But people thought this man was a coward because he wouldn't take up a rifle. And yet at the battle at Hacksaw Ridge, where hundreds and hundreds of lives were lost, the bravest man that day, everyone agrees, was Desmond Doss. Because he rescued, they estimate by himself, he rescued, without a gun in his hand, 75 fellow soldiers who were wounded, got them back to safety, and later was awarded the Medal of Honor, the first conscientious objector to get a Medal of Honor by President Truman. What an incredible act of courage and bravery. And when he was later asked how he did it, he said, I just kept praying this prayer. His refrain was, Lord, help me get one more. Just one more. Lord, help me get one more. Just one more. He was committed and courageous to doing the thing that God had called him to do, according to his convictions. And it's that kind of courage that we see in Daniel chapter 3. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Rakshak and Abednego, what they do is they have an opportunity to either bow down like everyone else or to stand up courageously as a witness to their God. We pick up the story in Daniel chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar decides to build a statue. And it happens to be 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. All right, this thing was monstrous in the ancient world. It was made of gold. Now, everything that's in us should be remembering what just happened in chapter 2. He had a dream of this big statue, and the statue had a head of gold, and he was told, you are the head of gold, but there are some other kingdoms that are coming that are going to take over. Well, he builds an entire statue that's all gold. It's almost like he's saying, me and my kingdom are the best, and we're going to endure. And what happens is he's commanding, he's calling all of the civil employees, the civil service workers of his day, to come to a ceremony, a dedication ceremony, where they can bow down to and worship this 90-foot tall statue. I think this is where VeggieTales got the idea of the bunny. Right? In the cartoon version, it's not just a golden statue, it's a big bunny, right? Like a chocolate Easter egg bunny. Like when you think of a statue that tall and that skinny, it's like, yeah, very, very strange. But They have to decide, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, will they bow down with the other civil service workers? Or will they stand up for what it is that they believe? The problem is, if you refused to bow down, it was punishable
y'all,
by death.
I gotta get going.
Loved
Y'all take care.
people
God
to
bless
death.
y'all. See you next
I mean,
video.
every time you turn around in the book of Daniel, this king